Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Joint Devolution Committee for North Yorkshire Council and City of York Council. I'd like to welcome you all, and it's my first meeting as chair in this seat, so this is very exciting, and looking forward to getting to know you all better and working with you over the period of time. We've got quite a lot of business to get through today, and just for your information, and we'll deal with this as we go through the agenda, there is a private section and under agenda item 6, and we propose to move that to after the work programme, so that that can be considered with the exclusion of press and public, but we'll deal with that when we come to it, just as to make you aware of it. So first of all, apologies. Does anybody have apologies at all? Can I just ask, because we don't have name tags in front of us. In fact, I should say I'm Councillor Claire Douglas and I'm leader of the City of York Council. We usually would have our names in front of us, but because this is a joint committee, we don't have them for everybody. So please make sure that you introduce yourself when you speak. Thank you.
Chair, Simon Dennis, I'm Chief Exec at the Office of the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. I am trying to locate the Commissioner as we speak. She is, I'm sure, on her way. I know she's been to a visit at a location some distance away, so she may just be delayed.
Thank you, Simon. That's been noted. Thank you. Right, next item that we have on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 13th of March 2023. Does anybody have any comments about those at all? Okay, so in that case, then please can we have indication they've been accepted as a fair and accurate record of that meeting?
Yeah, happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you. So those have been accepted. Thank you. Item number 3 is declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest at all? No. Very good. No declarations of interest. Thank you, everybody. Item number 4 is exclusion of the public. And under this item, members are recommended to exclude the public from the meeting during consideration of item 6. On the grounds that they each involve the likely disclosure if exempt information is defined in the paragraph specified in column 2 of part 1 of schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972 as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006. So can I see those in favour of excluding press and public at item number 6? Thank you. So that has been passed. And as I mentioned earlier, we will move that item to the end of the agenda so that we can close the meeting down and then not have to come back again. Thank you. Item number 5 is questions and statements by the public. And I have been told that we have nobody who is registered to speak under that item. So we move on. Item number 6 is moving down the agenda. So item number 7 is the finance update. And we have Debbie. Oh, sorry. Please go ahead.
Sometimes Debbie, but today I'm Nick Edwards representing Debbie, if that's all right, Nick. Chair. So as an introduction, I'm Nick Edwards from North Yorkshire Council. I've been working with and will present this report, as you say, on behalf of Debbie Mitchell, as you know, is the City of York Section 151 officer and who is also the responsible finance officer for establishing the combined authority. In November 2022, the Joint Committee approved a budget of £600,000 towards the 22-23 financial year costs for implementing the combined authority, which included the consultation period. Work has been ongoing to update that estimate for the implementation budget on the basis of a start date for the combined authority on the 1st of November, as well as work has been undertaken to do a more detailed budget for when the combined authority goes live and a strategic financial plan, but that will be subject to further reports to this committee in due course. In terms of the implementation budget, £582,000 has been spent in 22-23, and that is detailed in the report. And there's a request to the Joint Committee to approve a further £1 million, which would include the costs of staff time to set up the new entity, as well as cash flowing funds towards specific project delivery, including brownfields and net zero, as well as the installation of essential ICT infrastructure, which is required for the combined authority, as it will be its own entity in November. There is also a contingency built in to the budget which is proposed. Staff at the LEP, as well as the professional services support staff from the constituent councils, are currently working on the due diligence and governance and procedural operations needed to ensure the smooth transition into the brand new combined authority. Financial controls continue to be in place, requiring the council's section 151 officers to sign off expenditure. With regards to the request for the additional £1 million, the principles remain to the initial cash flowing, and that is on the basis that when the combined authority is established and it receives its grant funding, that the implementation costs are repaid immediately to the council. If for any reason the combined authority does not proceed, the financial risks of the implementation costs rests equally with North Yorkshire and York Council. And it's on the basis that North Yorkshire Council will continue to cash flow the implementation costs, noting that North Yorkshire is also the accountable body for the LEP and it holds the LEP reserves. But it's intended that when the combined authority when the LEP integrates into the combined authority, that the balance and reserves held in that is paid back to the constituent councils on a basis of the contribution rate to the LEP. On other matters and a wider financial context, the combined authority will receive significant funding when it is established, funding which is on top of any specific project funding from the 1st of November, if that is the setup date, will include funding around £10 million and £19.5 million in 24-25. So in a matter of months of the organisation going live, there will be funds of circa 30 million available to it. These funds are a mix of the Mayoral Capacity Fund, the Transport Capacity Fund, and the Investment Fund, otherwise sometimes known as the Gain Share. In addition to these funds, the LEP will have a continuing programme of works, which they will continue, which includes funding to pay for the staff associated with those works. Other reports on today's agenda, which have financial implications, include the adult education budget, where there's a request ultimately to fund just short of £500,000. There is the staffing structure report, noting that that is out to consultation, which will have financial implications. I will touch just briefly on those, noting that much of it is private and confidential. In the current year, which will be a part year, the gross staffing costs will touch £1.6 million, and in a full year, £4.5 million. But of that, there will be project-related funding to pay for some of those staff, £800,000 in the current year and £1.9 million in a full year. So in terms of this year, when the combined authority is established, We've already approved £600,000 towards the implementation costs, and there's a request today for a further £1 million, which would bring that up to 1.6 million. There's a request on today's agenda for the adult education budget of just short of £500,000. And as I mentioned, there are core staffing costs, net of income for grant funded schemes of 800,000, bringing a commitment to near £3 million. But please, members, note that the combined authority could be in receipt of £10 million in November. As I mentioned, further work will be undertaken following any agreement on the staffing structure to bring forward a comprehensive budget to the Joint Committee in due course, and that will also include details of support costs for professional services, which will be covered under service level agreements with constituent councils, which should provide the combined authority with the financial stability and resilience for its short to medium term. Members, today I'm asking you to note that 582,000 was incurred on the implementation costs up to the 31st of March 2023, and asking you if you would approve a further £1 million up to an implementation date end of the 1st of November. I'm asking you to note that North Yorkshire would continue to cash flow the monies on the principles that I've mentioned, that once the combined authority is in receipt of its grant funding, that will be repaid. And that is on an equal risk basis between the constituent councils. It is intended, and it's mentioned in this report, that once the LEP transfers into the combined authority, that any reserves left in the LEP balance would go back to the constituent authorities based on their contribution rate. Chairman, I've presented the report on Debbie. I will try and answer any questions that members may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. That was really helpful and informative. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Nick at all on the finances? Councillor Les.
Thank you. Not so much a question, just a comment that it seems complicated at the moment, but I think that's the nature of transition, isn't it? And as we get into the MCA, and hopefully we will be an MCA in due course, then I'm sure it will become much more clear as we go forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else like to make any comments, questions? No. Councillor Dad.
Thank you. It's just a passing comment. I'm supportive of what's been asked within this, but moving forward, 12 months ends once the combined authority is in full swing, so to speak. I think it would be helpful for us to track what I call the back office costs, because we all know these things can grow like topsy, and perhaps just log the admin compared to the actual spend and delivery stuff. I think that's the key to it. A lean and agile authority that's delivering, not delivering an empire, if you like, for the want of a better term.
Thank you, Councillor Dad. Yes, I think that's really important, isn't it, that we fully understand what is being spent administratively, but also compared to implementation, and then also delivery of the great opportunity and the projects that we all want to see coming through. And Nick, can I just ask you to outline, you spoke about the risk element of if the combined authority doesn't come through, I have absolutely no reason to expect that would be the case, but just want to make sure that we're absolutely clear of what happens should that be the case. Can you just give a little bit more detail on that? Thank you.
Yes, as you say, it's very low risk. You would expect that this would go ahead. We've mentioned today, and if approved, the implementation costs would be £1.6 million, assuming that was all spent and the combined authority didn't go ahead, then those costs would have to be borne by the constituent councils, going back to York and North Yorkshire on an equal basis. But as I say, that is on a very low risk basis, but we have to raise that to you today.
Yes, thank you for that. And I think it's really imperative that we all work together, therefore, isn't it, to push this forward as quickly as we possibly can so that that risk diminishes over time as well. Anybody else? And no. Okay, thank you. So we have the recommendations on page 36 of the agenda. That's under item number 11 on this, section 11 under this item. Can I see those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. So that's unanimous then. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Right, now we move on to, as outlined on the agenda, item number 8, which is the branding and website recommendation for York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority. And I understand Asa is going to introduce that for us. Please go ahead, Asa. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Isa Galley and I'm the Head of Communications for the York and North Yorkshire Local Enterprise Partnership. I'm going to present on the paper for branding and website recommendations, proposed branding and website recommendations for the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority. So taking the paper as read, I just want to highlight that the contents of this paper have been developed in collaboration between all of the partners involved in the combined authority. So that's the constituent councils and the Office of Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, as well as colleagues at the LEP. We've done the work in-house in order to keep the budget to an absolute minimum. And we went through a fairly simple process in order to develop the brand that's been put forward to you today. We did a review of all of our existing brands as a complete partnership, and you can see those presented in the Annex 2. And we made comments on those brands and talked about the visual aspects that could combine into a shared concept. We developed a first set of concepts, reviewed those. We had a face-to-face workshop, and then at that workshop we agreed to progress the concept that's been put forward to you today. This branding is put forward with the express intention that it works alongside all of the existing partnership brands. It will primarily be used to develop online assets, and material assets will be kept to a minimum. We also note in the paper the Day One website with links to 3 sub-brands, which would be the Office of Police, Fire and Crime Commission to represent the partnership and future integration. And then the York and North Yorkshire Growth Hub and the Invest in York and North Yorkshire in order to represent continuity relating to business support and investment activity across the York and North Yorkshire footprint. So that's the high level detail of the paper, and I ask the members to note the recommendations, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Isa. And does anybody have any questions or comments for Isa at all? Am I correct, Isa, in the fact that this is a placeholder for now, and should the incoming mayor in May 2024 want to review and change that brand, that's what will happen?
Yeah, very much. The brand has been developed with the intention of it being an interim placeholder, as you say, and we'll be working together, the same working group that have developed this, to develop any proposals should the mayor want to develop that brand further when they come into post.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question about page 40, I think it is. Am I looking? Is that where I'm looking? Page 40, when the circles with each of the organisations involved in the branding are listed. I think LEP is mentioned twice, and I think that likely that should be the constituent authorities for one of them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that just relates to the colours that the brands that the colours have been extracted from, because one of the principles that we built the brand on was to use existing palettes as much as possible so that we didn't have to develop new ones. So this just explains that those two colours have come from that palette that the LEP was using.
Okay, perfect. That makes it clear to me. Right, Councillor Kilbane.
Yeah, just on that, it was a cause of some discussion, shall we say. I think it's almost impossible not to associate colours with political parties, fortunately or unfortunately. And I think I can see what you've tried to achieve, but I think it'll be a matter that we'll take up. I don't think we need to make a big deal of it, but it's a matter that we can take up with the incoming mayor when we're looking at a rebrand. You can look at it both ways, can't you? You can see red at the heart of it, or you can see red being the smallest part of it. It depends on your perspective. So I think it's something that we will need to navigate, because it is the comment that's been coming back the most to us.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. Anybody else want to ask any questions or make any comment at all? No? Okay, thank you very much for that. So in that case, then I now have to zoom down to the recommendations. Back up. Thank you. Am I going to go too far again? Right, okay. So recommendations are on page 39. And so this asks that we note the branding and design for the combined authority, the interim branding, and the partner sub-brands linked to the combined authority website from day one. Please, can I see those in favour of supporting the recommendations? Right, that's everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you. Back to the top. Right, our next item then is item number 9 on the agenda, the adult education budget implementation funding. And is that James? Is that you that's introducing that? Please go ahead, James. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the adult education budget is one of the statutory responsibilities that comes with devolution for the mayor. It's currently approximately 11.2 million across Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, which supports around 17,000 learners per year, and there's also almost 180 different providers provide that service. I think it's worth saying at this point that both City of York and North Yorkshire Council are deliverers of adult education. It is not the role that they play that is being devolved. It is the role that the Department for Education play around the strategic management of that 11.2 million that is being devolved down. Both City of York and North Yorkshire are likely to remain deliverers of that fund as we move forward. In order to be able to devolve the funds, there is a number of statutory responsibilities that we have to meet. First and foremost, the Secretary of State for Education have got to be assured that we are operationally ready to administer the budget. The Parliament has to legislate to enable the transfer of the budget to the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority. There's got to be a memorandum of understanding between the Department for Education and the Combined Authority that the appropriate assurance is in place, and there's got to be learner protection arrangement agreed between the parties. So it's quite a significant piece of work to enable us to be able to draw down the adult education budget, and the aim is to be able to draw it down from August 2025. The Department for Education has provided the opportunity for us to bid for some funding to support those investment readiness. So this is not the cost of running it once we get it. This is the meeting those investment readiness criteria. And we have to bid in order to do that. And part of the criteria was that any funding we requested from Department for Education has to be matched locally from a local source. So a lot of work's been undertaken across City of York, North Yorkshire Council and the LEP, looking at what this requirement is and what is needed to be done, and put a programme in place to deliver that. And the estimated cost between now and August 2025 is just short of £1 million, so £975,000. What we are proposing is that we bid to the Department for Education for 480,000, which means that we've got 494,000, which we provide locally as match. The proposal is that the funding for that match comes from the Mayoral Investment Fund. So there'll be £9 million received in the Mayoral Investment Funds when the Combined Authority is created, as Nick outlined earlier, and we're proposing that money comes from there. And that's the primary request of the committee today. I will take, there's lots of background information included in the paper. I'm happy to take any questions around that. However, a clear programme plan's in place, which is fully costed. It will look to utilise existing resource wherever we can, notwithstanding that both because City of York and North Yorkshire are deliverers, there is a conflict of interest we need to manage with regard to the strategic leadership and that delivery role from that perspective. With regard to making sure we have the right oversight as well, there's also a recommendation that the current Skills and Employability Board, which operates at a York and North Yorkshire level and already manages some of the skills funds which will transfer into the combined authority, is used in an advisory capacity. So it is purely advisory. Decisions will always come back to this joint committee for any formal decision, but it's recommended that we utilise that existing structure to provide that oversight and make sure we've got the correct political representation from both City of York and North Yorkshire councils on that committee. And we're also recommending that the North Yorkshire Council Corporate Director of Resources, their Section 151 officer, be given delegated authority to accept the funding from Department for Education when we find out how much we've been awarded from that point of view. And that reflects that North Yorkshire County Council are acting as the accountable body, as Nick outlined earlier, from that point of view. So they're the three recommendations for this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to ask James any questions at all? Councillor Les?
Thank you. James, on the SEB, we have a member appointed by myself to sit on it, my executive member for skills. Is that going to continue? And is that what you meant by representation? So City of York will have the same opportunity. Is that correct?
Yeah, currently it's an officer from North Yorkshire Council where we're proposing that it actually becomes the member. So Councillor Wilkinson for yourself, and obviously the appropriate member from York as well to be allocated. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Les. Councillor Dadd?
It's just a matter of intrigue, really. Fully supportive of what, again, you're seeking. But there must be some science or some numbers behind it, why we're asking for £480,932 from the DFE and £494,816. It's a bit petty, really, I know. But why is it not just 50% split? There must be a reason.
There is. So the funding we can request from Department for Education can only be for new posts and new positions. So where we're using existing staff to deliver some of the resources, that has to come from our match side of it. Because we're looking to maximise the amount of existing resources we use, that is fractionally over half of it. So it's just that eligibility from that point of view.
Councillor Kilbane?
No, thank you, Chair. And we can get sort of lost in the detail of this transfer a little bit, James. So I just wondering if you can explain to the committee and to anybody watching what the advantage will be of having devolution over the adult education budget.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously the adult education is a really key funding stream with regard to making sure that the people and communities across North Yorkshire get the right training to meet the employment needs. Currently, that is managed from Whitehall, from London, from the Department for Education. Obviously, once you get local control and local leadership of that, you can have much closer alignment with the economic needs and the opportunities within the region of York and North Yorkshire. And you have some elements of it where you can actually create new models and flexibilities with regard to how you might want to deliver that. So first of all, foremost, it means that it's local intelligence which is driving the alignment and where we prioritise that funding, but also it does provide that opportunity to look at new, more innovative models which are much closely aligned with local opportunities.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions? Okay, so mine is potentially a question, I think, for legal monitoring officer. It's around governance and democracy in this area so that the public can see how that will work, given that we're using a different vehicle for bringing through progress. It's part of the LEP, the Skills and Employment Board. So how will decisions be brought forward from the Skills and Employment Board, given that they've never had to do this before? Has this been thought through yet? Lisa, do you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Chair. So we're still working through the details of the governance of the arrangements, as you'll see from the work programme that I'm going to present in a moment. So we will be bringing further updates to members, but I agree with you, it's a really critical part of the work that will be undertaken, that the public understands fully how the money is being spent and the benefits that the region are gaining from that. So I think it's work in progress at the moment, but the principles absolutely have agreed, and we will finalise that as we bring the reports through to you on the governance of the organisation going forward.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a really important area, isn't it? Because we are doing things slightly differently. And the LEP previously hasn't been involved with members. So this is a new area of work for them as well. So it will be important that we get it right. But I think the working practices are there and the relationships are there. So I don't see that this should be a problem, but we need to make sure that the public have full visibility and trust in the procedures that take place. Right, does anybody else want to make any other comment at all? No. Okay, so the recommendations are on page 57. My computer screen has just gone blank, so I'm not going to read them out. Oh, he's got them here for me. Thank you. So we have the first recommendation, 13.1, is about the funding with the match funding from the Mayoral Investment Fund against DOV funding. Then recommendation number 2 is that the Skills and Employment Board will take on the role of the project board, and recommendation number 3 that prior to creation of the MCA, the North Yorkshire Council acting as the accountable body, and resources being delegated, and they will need to accept any funding ultimately offered as a result of the business case submitted to DFE concerning the AOB implementation, the adult education budget. So can I see those? Thank you. In support of the recommendations. Gareth, Councillor Dadd is also in support of them. Marvellous, thank you very much. Great, thank you. Right, so next item. If I can get into it, I can get into it. Let me give you a moment. It will be in. Right, so next item is the committee work programme. Lisa, are you going to introduce this to us? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the first iteration of the work programme for this committee as it transitions towards the combined authority in due course. The work programme has been set up with a view to the combined authority coming into legal standing around the 1st of November, which is what we are anticipating at present. There's obviously a lot of work going on behind the scenes to prepare for that. And this work programme really sets out the kind of decisions and matters which this committee will need to consider and give approvals to as we move through that process. I should say, since this work programme was published, I've been given notice that there are some issues around transport which will be needed to be added to this work programme in due course, including approval of the key route network, the strategic highway asset management plan, the strategic local transport plan, and the major schemes pipeline in due course. We're expecting approvals around those to come through in January and April 24. So I will be adding those in time for the next committee meeting so that you can see that. We do expect as well changes to this work programme and additions to come forward as the work progresses in forming the new authority. And I'm quite happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Lisa on the work programme? Councillor Les?
We don't appear to have a budget update for every meeting. We seem to have listed it for the November meeting. I just think it'd be useful if there was a budget update each time we met.
Thank you, Councillor Les. And yeah, I think that's a really good element to add to each of our meetings. Lisa, can you speak to where on the work plan updates to governance structures and important points in that are for us as well, please? So they're highlighted. Thank you.
Yes, so we're hoping to bring an update on the proposed governance arrangements to the MCA in September when we've started to finalise the arrangements around the draft order, and we're able to give and seek advice from members and steer from members in relation to those structures. And that work will be ongoing and it continues into November, when the bulk of the work around that will come forward in relation to improving the organisation's constitution and its standing orders, etc. However, like I said, we're intending in September to bring an update around that and seek a steer from members of the direction that that's going in, and that members are happy that those proposals fit. But like I say, we are, at the same time that we're bringing those proposals forward, we are working with central government in formalising those. So I'm not able to bring anything more concrete at this moment in time. We anticipate September will be the right moment to start seeking more concrete views around it.
Okay, thank you. And so just for clarification for everybody then, because the governance update on proposed governance arrangements for MCA come in September, that for members in the constituent authorities, when is there opportunity to have a feed into those and have a look at them outside of this meeting? Can we just have a bit of an indication on that, please?
Thank you. Yes, we're quite happy to start feeding when we get more proposals forward and seek the views of elected members as we go through that process. And there's obviously an opportunity for previously relating to that, and that's to advise this committee as well. I'm quite happy to talk to members about how they would like to progress that.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Corbyn.
Thanks, and thanks, Jen. Thanks for the report. Do we have any clarity on when we're expecting the draft order to come through?
At this moment in time, we are working on pieces of it and discussing with the central government how it gives effect to the draft scheme that has been submitted. With regard to the entirety of the order, it's quite hard to say, because like I say, there's a few bits and pieces that do need finalising around that. I think we're expecting around the early autumn time, and the order will be laid. Like I say, that's sort of the latest update on that. And we, as I said, we are aiming for a November constitution of the new authority.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Clarity as you want from this. So clearly we're just being a bit.
Sorry, can you just introduce yourself for me, please?
Barry Khan, I'm the Assistant Chief Exec for Legal and Democratic Services for North Yorkshire Council. Apologies, hopefully you can hear me now. Sorry. I'm Barry Khan, I'm the Assistant Chief Executive for Legal and Democratic Services for North Yorkshire Council. The reason why we're being slightly evasive with regards to timescales is that we're in government's hands with regards to the drafting of the order, and we haven't even got a full copy of the whole draft order at this stage. So once we are in a position as monitoring officers to receive the full copy of the orders, clearly we can then, with permission, share it with our members, and the members can input into with regards to the key governance documents for the new combined authority. Clearly, we want to make sure we have the constitution ready when the new organisation is formed. At the moment, the feedback we're getting from central government is they're still looking at some of the issues to be resolved. So we haven't got a clear date about when the order is going to be laid, or also the commencement of the combined authority. Within the papers at the time, we said our best estimate was November. However, we are in government's hands and that may slip as well. But we have no indication to say that the slippage of actually having the mayoral elections in May will slip. It's still, that is the thing that everyone's working towards.
Thank you for that. And I just wonder, therefore, if it's time to write to the minister responsible and ask directly for an update on timing. It might be helpful, given that we are now in recess and we need action quickly, don't we, in September, essentially. Right, okay, so work plan then, we've asked for a budget update to be added to each meeting. And then, as Lisa has said, she will update the work plan as additional requirements come through. So we'll have a look at that next time we come round, right? So in that case, then, are we all in favour of the work plan as outlined? Yes, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, that's great. Good, right, so in that case then, the final item on the agenda would have been, had there been any urgent business. There is none. So therefore we are going to bring the meeting to a close and go into private session. Following, I think, Helen, do you want to speak to the report under item 6 first before we go into private session, so that what can be made public is, and then we review the private section on its own. I'll let you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm Helen Whiting. I'm Head of HR for City of York, and I'm also leading the HR work stream for the Combined Authority. As you can see from the public paper, we're looking at receiving and approving the staffing structure for the Combined Authority from November. This report very much looks at from November only at this point in time, because as there's already been lots of discussions, we are pending the orders, the order. And that also has an implication on the PFCC statutory officer status, so things could change. The report does set out the interim appointments of a Director of Transition, and the details are in the private annex, which I can go into shortly. The structure that we've put forward very much brings together having a resilient. We've learned a lot of information from other combined authorities. We're very much working on the basis that the LEP transfers, and we've got details of the North Yorkshire and mirroring North Yorkshire County Council's terms and conditions. We're proposing that the Chief Executive is not appointed till after the Mayor, which will be May, should everything go well with the order, etc. We set out the finances, but I know my colleague Nick has already set out a lot of the finances, including the elements of the staffing area, but there is some financial implications from paragraph 15. That's probably about it, Chair. I'm happy to take questions on the first status of it.
Thank you, Helen. Does anybody have any questions for Helen on that basis? Councillor Dadd?
Yeah, thank you. Clearly, the appointment of a chief exec is a significant appointment. Can you tell me how you see that appointment being made? I can well understand why a mayor must have some input into that, but finally, the decision to appoint, is it purely in the hands of the mayor, or is it weighted voting from the combined authority, for example?
It's from the combined authority. It'll be a joint committee. It'll be a constitutional post. It's a head of paid services post. So it'll be fitting with the constitution of the combined authority. So it isn't just resting with the mayor. No, that would be a joint committee that everybody would involve.
So therefore, it would need, if there's three parts to it, the mayor and the two authorities, it would need two of those three to agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, right, okay. So at this point then we'll move into the closed session to consider the annexes. So I'm sorry, people in the public gallery as well, you will need to leave us. I believe it's for voting members only. Helen, can you updates on who can and can't stay, because at this point there's quite a lot of voting members. Yes, please end the public session. Thank you. Thank you.